spring bloom is over with. Blossoms are dying in a hurry now, and we need to get them off because in a few weeks we can have another big flush of bloom if we deadhead now. Normally we talk about deadheading to just above, a quarter of an inch above a 5-leaflet leaf, which we have right here. But when we look at the bud that's down in the axil of that leaf, we find that it is not too plump or healthy looking. So we'll go to the next one. Well, the next one doesn't look particularly healthy either. So let's go to the next one. And aha, that bud looks so much better. So we'll just prune to just about a quarter of an inch above that bud, and presto, we've deadheaded that cane. Once you've made that cut, if you've kept up your schedule of water and the plant has a good level of fertilization, you will find a wonderful new shoot starting right in the axil of that 5-leaflet leaf. And that's your next new rosebud coming. Most people grow hybrid tea roses, so let's begin with deadheading hybrid teas. Here's a hybrid tea that needs to be disbudded. We're going to look first of all for a 5-leaflet leaf that has a nice, plump, healthy green bud in the leaf axil. Now that's not a good bud. It's dry and hard looking. Here's a good bud, but it's only got 3 leaflets on that leaf. Well, let's come down a little. Here's a 5-leaflet leaf, but it doesn't look too good. That bud is a little bit hard and dry. But when we come to this 5-leaflet leaf, we see a bud in that leaf axil that is just waiting to pop out for the next flush of bloom. And so we'll cut about a quarter of an inch above that, and we're ready for a few more weeks and then bloom. How's that? Shrub roses are especially popular with people who want lots of color in their yard. They produce masses of blooms and give a nice effect in the landscape. We have a nice bunch of spent roses, or soon-to-be spent roses, and we use really the same basic principle that we have used in deadheading of hybrid tea. We go down the stem, we find a 3-leaflet leaf, we don't want that one. Here's another 3-leaflet leaf, we don't want that one. We're looking for a 5-leaflet leaf, and here we are. Here's a 5-leaflet leaf, and there's a nice healthy bud. So let's just prune a quarter of an inch above, and there we are. There are several different types of climbers. This climber happens to be a climber that produces its blossoms in clusters. This climber has this entire cluster needing to disappear. And so we count down and we find 3 leaves, 5 leaves on that one, but it doesn't have a good bud in there. It's kind of dark and dried up looking. We're going to go to the next one, and there's a nice plump healthy bud down there. We'll just trim that off the same as we have been doing. And that's how we'll deadhead the climber that has clusters of blooms. Okay. This climber is what we call a large flowered climber. This climber may produce clusters and it may produce single blooms. The cluster we do just as we do an older type bloom, We look for a 5-leaflet leaf and find that that bud in there is just not healthy looking. But if we go to the next one, we find a nice plump bud in that leaf axil. So we'll just cut that cluster off, the same as we did for the first one. Then we go and we find that it's also got a single bloom on this large flowered climber. And we look just as we did before and go ahead and deadhead that right there. These will each produce a nice new shoot for a new cycle of growth later on. Floribundas tend to produce clusters like shrub roses and some of the older climbers. However, with a floribunda, the first blossom that appears in the cluster is usually the center of that cluster. And if you want, when that center bloom is finished, you can discard that, and that will make your the rest of your buds in that cluster look so much better. This is mainly a matter of grooming. And here's a cluster where the center has been taken out several weeks ago, and these buds all bloomed, and it's a handsome looking cluster rather than a cluster with an old dead rose in the middle of it. Most of the miniatures that we grow are nice little compact plants. Sometimes people grow climbing miniatures, and the same principle will apply to a climbing miniature as a compact miniature. We just want to look for a good healthy shoot that's in a leaf axil, a 5-leaflet leaf axil, and cut off that blossom. This rose doesn't show it, but sometimes it produces clusters, and we just do the same thing that we have been doing, cutting above a 5-leaflet leaf that has a good healthy shoot on it. Here you can see where a new shoot is coming out of a leaf axil where the bloom has already been pruned off maybe a week or two ago.